Over the past couple of years, wholesaling has absolutely blown up. It's become so popular, and a lot of people who are trying to crack into real estate for the first time want to start with wholesaling. The only problem is wholesaling is pretty confusing to understand on the front end if you have no idea or you're getting into real estate investing for the first time. So in this video, I'm going to break down as simply as possible what wholesaling is and the processes, as well as the parties involved. Stay tuned. So what is wholesaling? Wholesaling can be wrapped up in this one sentence. A wholesaler is somebody that connects a seller of a property with an investor looking to buy that property. Very simply put, a wholesaler is the middleman between an investor looking to buy investment properties and sellers looking to sell their properties that they no longer want. When you break it down, there are only really four parties involved in a wholesale real estate transaction. Number one, the seller of the home. Number two, the buyer of the home or the investor. Number three, obviously the wholesaler, and number four, the title company. So what I'm gonna do is break down the functions and roles of each one of these parties in a wholesale transaction, and it's gonna give you a very simplistic view of how wholesaling works. So the first party is the seller. It's very simply the person that owns a home currently, and here are usually the most common things that you will find from a seller. The first thing is the seller's property is probably in distressed condition. There are significant repairs that need to be made. Over time, it's become outdated, or renters in the property have decreased the value of the home, so significant amount of money, time, and effort needs to be put into the home to bring it back up to a retail or the full value of what the home could be. The second thing is typically this property is an off-market property, which means that it's not on the public market for everyone else to see that it's for sale, and a real estate agent hasn't been hired. And the third thing, because the property is in distressed condition or there's a lot of work that needs to be put into it, the property is almost always sold at a discount. The second party is an end buyer or an investor. It could be an individual or maybe it's a company, and they are actively looking to buy investment properties to make money. Usually the main reason that a buyer or an investor has a relationship with a wholesaler is because they don't have the time, energy, or expertise to go actually find these distressed properties from property owners to invest in. And this is important. This is the main reason that buyers or investors are willing to pay wholesalers a fee called an assignment fee, is because they don't have the capacity or the ability or the expertise to go find that deal for themselves, so they're willing to pay somebody to bring that deal to them. And the third party is obviously the wholesaler, and the wholesalers really, the only job they have is to go find distressed properties and connect with sellers to find these opportunities where sellers are looking to sell their homes. Once a wholesaler identifies a seller who is looking to sell their property, the wholesaler goes under contract with the owner of the home to purchase that property. Once the wholesaler has an active purchase agreement with the seller of the home, the wholesaler then goes and assigns the buying rights to the contract to an investor or another buyer. When the wholesaler assigns the property to an end buyer or investor, there is a contract that is created between the wholesaler and the end buyer called an assignment of contract. In this contract, the wholesaler is agreeing with the end buyer that the end buyer is going to pay the wholesaler a fee to give away the wholesaler's rights to buy the property, thus allowing the end buyer to end up being the one buying that property. The fee that is paid is called an assignment fee. Finally, the last party that's involved is a title company. The title company's role is to properly and legally complete all the paperwork that is necessary to make the real estate transaction happen. The title company also plays a very important role because it protects all the parties involved. So the amount of money that is either due or the amount of money that needs to be paid to make the transaction happen, and all the checks and balances that need to occur, the title company is the one that does that for you. And in case you didn't know what a title to a house is very similar to what a title is to a car. It is a piece of paper that verifies who is the legal owner of a property. This is very important because you want to make sure that the title is clear. There are no issues with how the owner of the property actually owns that home. So the title company's job is to make sure that the title is in good and clean condition so that the buyer is buying a title that is clear and free of any problems from the seller. So those are the four parties involved in a wholesale real estate transaction, and those are all of their functions. Now I'm going to give you a very, very simple example of how a wholesale transaction will actually work with real numbers. Let's imagine that a wholesaler makes a purchase agreement or a contract with a owner of a property to buy a property for $100,000. Then let's say that that wholesaler finds an investor who is willing to buy that property for $120,000. The wholesaler would then create an agreement with the end buyer that the end buyer will purchase this property for $120,000. That difference of $20,000 is what the investor is willing to pay the wholesaler in order to gain the rights to buy the property. Once all of these contracts are in place, you send the purchase agreement that you have with the seller and the assignment of contract agreement that you have with the end buyer to the title company. From here on out, things play out as a regular real estate transaction. There is a closing date, and when the property closes, which means the seller formally sells the property to the end buyer, the wholesaler would show up and pick up an assignment fee, a check for $20,000. That is how wholesalers make their money. So this is a very, very simple overview of what wholesaling is and the parties involved. I hope this video helped. We'll catch you on the next one.